Utah, we have LaunchUp.
I'm talking tonight, you can start my time, about Beware the Idea Fairy. I gave this presentation up at the University of Utah as part of the Student Entrepreneur Conference they had on Saturday, and it was an hour long, so this is going to be tricky. But most people think of that. And a quick side note, when you go to iStock Photo and you do a search for fairies and stuff, you have to be careful because some of them are very racy. And although I was at the University of Utah and not BYU, I thought about just going with it, but I found an okay one. I didn't want to cross the line. But the idea fairy in entrepreneurship is not this girl in the garden. It is that guy. Okay? So, who here has a business idea? Show of hands. In the Cubs, is that Cubs hat? Cleveland Indians. What's your idea? I mean, how common is that exchange, right? What's your idea? Simplest way to put it is like a Priceline.com thing for properties. Okay, Priceline for properties, right? Okay, cool. So most people talk about ideas. This is an idea that when it came out in 2001 was so hush-hush, it was going to change the world. There was so much buzz about this stupid little thing that it was crazy talk. I mean, I remember distinctly. What is it? Oh, it's going to change the world. What is that? It's a Segway. Who's ridden on a Segway before in their life? So maybe 5% of the people. Who owns a Segway? Did it change the world? No, it was a stupid idea, right? Why was it a stupid idea? Well, you can go to Time Magazine and you can get a list of the top 50 worst inventions of all time. I love that Farmville is on there because that's totally right. Like, head on. I mean, smell-o-vision. I mean, anyway, the Betamax. I mean, there's some awesome stuff up there. What's your idea? Okay, that's such a common thing. But the problem is it's the wrong thing to ask. It's completely backwards. You need to start by saying, number one, what's the problem? So back to you. You gave me the solution. What's the problem you're trying to solve? What's the pain? What's the angst in the world that you know? Okay. Perfect. That's even right there. Investment properties have high vacancies. Huge problem. What's the problem? Boom. And the interesting thing is good entrepreneurs, and really most of us, will have some story that ties us to the problem. Because we're not driving down the freeway someday and just this idea falls out of the sky, right? We've lived the problem. We've known people who lived the problem. We actually are intimately tied to it in a lot of cases. We've worked in an industry for 20 years, and we just know this is such a problem, right? So that's, when you start with the problem, you start by being able to compel people that there's actually something going on and start to tell a story. The second thing is, how big is the problem? You're dealing with elephants or bacteria? So back to your question, how big is rental properties? And I don't know the answer to that. You probably, right? How big's the problem? You have any idea? What's your research? But how could, think about it. How many rental, you could start thinking about, wow, I live up at Traverse Mountain, and in my neighborhood, man, 10% of the houses are rental houses, and that's just like, that's a few hundred homes, and I times that out, and it's like there's millions of rental properties in the country. That's a big quantifiable problem, even if you don't have the info. My favorite interview question is to ask people how many gas stations are in the United States, and it's a question that goes to get to somebody's kind of intelligence, because most people look with a blank stare and they're like, I have no idea. But what do you know in that question? You know some things about gas because you all use it. You know some things about the United States. You know that there's 50 states, there's 280 million people. You can start to deconstruct that and come up with some sort of a range and at least be in the realm of whether it's bacteria or elephants. And every problem you can do the same thing. How am I doing? Okay, sweet. Okay, then you get to the solution, which is the idea. And if you don't do those other things first, business plan idea competitions are the worst things on the planet. They should be called business problem competitions. We should all, as entrepreneurs, instead of what's your idea, we should ask, what's your problem? What's the problem? It's just a better framework of mind because it starts you down the right path. And once you get to the solution, now you can expand on, we're Priceline for rental properties. And then you can go one layer deep, which is actually awesome, by the way, because you're taking something that people know and applying it to your solution. Most people cannot get this to one sentence. As part of this thing I did for the University of Utah, there were about 6 or 7 students that I emailed back and forth with because we asked for volunteers ahead of time. And I helped refine these steps actually through those exchanges, because everybody rattles off their idea, but you really start to understand, what is the problem you're trying to solve. And the crazy thing about the solution is nobody can do it in one sentence. I had a couple entrepreneurs, I asked them 5 times, do it in one sentence, do it in one sentence. And they would come back with paragraphs. It's too complicated to tell in one sentence. It's crap. It's not too complicated to say in one sentence. If you can't get it to one sentence, you haven't worked through it enough. You really don't have a solution, or there really isn't a problem. Only one of those two things can happen. Then you have to talk, the next step in your story is, why should people believe in you, that you're the guy or team to go and solve the problem? Why should I invest in you? Why should I buy from you? Why should I join you as a founder? Why should I care? If you start with the problem rather than the idea, this becomes infinitely easier, because you start by talking about why you're tied to the problem. It naturally comes out, So why are you tied to rental properties? Where did this come from?
Actually, I was taking a real estate class, and a guy from Tenants in Common Investment came in and showed us a few properties and asked us if they were doing well, or just by looking at them, if they did well, if they didn't do well. And we all thought they did well, but they were actually all losing money.
Yeah, so you saw the problem, and I just realized, everybody online, sorry, you're not getting half the conversation, but anyway. But so you saw the problem, and you have a reason of why you actually are wanting to go do all these next steps. Why are you playing with a rubber glove in the lab? That's why scientists, web and all these other things are tricky, right? When you're a scientist doing research, this becomes, you come up and you say, look, I've researched this particular cancer drug for 15 years of my life. That's very compelling all of a sudden. Step number 5 is, how are you going to make money, off of this? And is the problem big enough somebody to pay for? My personal opinion, if you don't have a direct business model where somebody says, oh, I have the problem, you solve the problem, here's money. That simple, smoke and mirrors crap. If you're trying to make money off of advertising or other things, go find a problem that people will pay you for. Be a true entrepreneur. Sorry. For the entrepreneurs in the room that are doing smoke and mirrors crap, I apologize if I've offended you by not calling you true entrepreneurs. But find something where it's a direct tie like that. 80% of the stuff I see coming out of the Bay Area that's getting fun, they're not real businesses. Honest truth, they're not real businesses. They won't be here in 15 years. Maybe I'll be wrong. I was also the guy that put on my blog a couple years ago that Ning was going to beat Facebook. Look how right I was with that. So, which business model would you rather have? That's the point of the image. 1 + 1 = 2, or something that I don't know what it is because I quit doing math and science in college. Basically, that's your 5 steps. How many people have heard time? Okay, sweet. Okay, we're going to meet today, and I don't want to talk about problems or dwell on the problems. I want to talk about solutions. Who's heard a politician say something along those lines, right? We're going to talk about solutions for America. You know what I say? This is a direct quote. Bullshit. Okay? If there are no problems, there are no solutions. You're approaching it the wrong way. This is completely incorrect. This stock image is wrong. There's my X, right? Anyway, any questions quick? That's 5 things that's how we do it. And whether it's at a macro level, like I'm trying to start a business, or whether it was last week when we got Doba management together and we threw up 12 ideas of things that we want to try to do in 2011, and we have to go through this same process. Ideas are a dime a dozen, they flow, and you have to step back and say, okay, well, what's the real problem here? Whether it's inside a business or whether it's a business. And my experience is, if you can follow those steps in a different order than most people approach it, you'll be more successful as an entrepreneur. 1 question? 2 questions? Any questions? Yeah, Tyler. So how do you vet ideas outside of your inner circle? I try to pay attention to what's going on in the world, and the best way to vet the idea is to talk to the people whose problem you think you're going to go solve. You were exposed to rental properties through a class from this speaker, right? Best thing that you can do, and it will help with quantifying the problem, it will help with identifying the size of it, it will help, is to figure out a way to go talk to 100 people that are property management companies, people, investors, you name it, and just sit down with them and talk. Quick side story, when I started Gear Trade, Ski Swap Online, back in '99, I started working on this thing. I came down here to UVU. There was a big Scoutorama right? I didn't know ski swap. I mean, I had a brochure question. It was the 99 version of SurveyMonkey. And I walked around to scout people, and I probably talked to 70 people that day. Would you buy closeout deals online if you could find them in a place? And it was all these questions. You know, I jumped on an airplane. I flew to the Outdoor Industry Association's thing in North Carolina without knowing anybody. Because, see, those were the people's whose problem I was trying to solve. So talk to the problem feelers in quantity. But so ideas are not, beware the idea fairy. That's the end. Thanks.